This all started with Chris the Long Cut's video about the top 10 records he listens to the most. I found that very intriguing. Mazzy's done a video, Fitz's Electric Bar's done a video. I'm sure there's others, and I'm sure by the time I post this, there will be even more. I think it's a really fun topic. I did wrestle with it initially. I was like, well, what does it mean? Album that I listen to the most for my whole life, because there's certain albums when I was a kid that I completely wore out. I'm talking about like R.E.M. Document, the cassette. You could not read the label after I was done with it by the time I bought it on CD. Same thing with Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction, Van Halen 1984, Jane's Addiction, Nothing Shocking, and possibly the Pixies' Doolittle. Those albums were played so much. I know them like the back of my hand. I still love to hear them unexpectedly. They're not always ones that I pull out to play regularly just because I play them to death. But if I'm thinking about albums that the last 10, 20 years that I just pull out when I can't think of anything else to play or have people over, or they just sound right in a certain occasion, whether it's like I want to be a little mellow or Sunday morning record or even a road trip record. So the first one, as you can see behind me, is Rolling Stones' Beggar's Banquet. This came out in 1968. I discovered it probably in the mid 90s. I think it's the Rolling Stones' best record. I love that 4 album period. Like most people, Beggars, Let It Bleed, Sticky Fingers, and Exile. But this is my go-to album by the Stones and my favorite one. I love how they took the blues and the influences that they started with, and by this point had totally made them their own. And this is an album that I don't think got really repeated. The style of music on here never really got repeated. I mean, you could say, yeah, that Street Fighting Man did, but not stuff like No Expectations and Dear Doctor, Salt of the Earth, Parachute Woman, maybe a little bit Exile-ish kind of, but I love this album. It's such a great album, and usually if I play it and people aren't that familiar with this album, they're really impressed by it, and sometimes have a hard time believing it's the Rolling Stones. But yeah, Beggar's Banquet, absolutely love it. I'm gonna do the reach around here and reveal what the next one is. Yes, Guided by Voices. I love Guided by Voices. I did a video about this album before. I bought this album, loved it, and then saw them that same night, and it was fantastic. And I love this album. It's just such a great rock and roll record. It has a sound all its own. It's like a group of 5 guys playing music in a basement, the brilliant songwriter, and using interesting 8-track production, whatever they could do themselves, and they've never repeated this kind of sound, and I just love it. It's my favorite Guided by Voices record, and sometimes I just have to play it, and it's fairly regularly. Not an album you want to put on shuffle if you're listening to digitally or CD. It's sequenced for a reason, and those small songs I think make all the difference. It's like a little collage, and it works. The sum of the parts is greater, or the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, rather. It is just I love this record. Alien Leads gets a lot of play. Next we have Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here. This came out in 1975. Not always my favorite Floyd record. Sometimes it's Animals, sometimes it's Dark Side of the Moon, and sometimes, once in a while, it's Piper at the Gates of Dawn. But I absolutely love Wish You Were Here, partly because it sustains a mood so nicely. I actually like that there's tons of instrumentals on this, and by tons I mean like 2 songs and they're called the same thing. But Shine On You Crazy Diamond, the first one, well, that's made of like 5 parts or whatever, and then the one that closes the record, just such a nice build up. It's almost ambient music. I can put it on when I'm doing other things. I don't have to pay attention to the lyrics with this one, which is kind of nice. Plus I know it so well, it usually doesn't take me by surprise. But I love Wish You Were Here. I think it's an incredible album, and I think it's probably Pink Floyd as a group, with all members contributing equally, probably their best effort, if you think about it that way, not being dominated by Waters or whatever. That and Dark Side, of course. But yeah, absolutely love Wish You Were Here, and I played a tons. Next we have Jason Isbell, Southeastern. Great singer-songwriter record. I think this is up there with the best singer-songwriter records I almost want to say of all time, but let's just go with the last 20 years. Incredible record. Every song on there is really well done, with the exception of Super 8. That one could be, nicked from the record, but such a good record. A record of purpose, a record of vision. He gotten sober, he met his wife, and he just put out this brilliant album. I don't think he's come close to topping it, although I do like the new one quite a bit. But yeah, Southeastern from Jason Isbell. Do the reach around again here. Led Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy. Wow, what can you say? It wasn't always my favorite album, but it has been for quite a while now. I used to be annoyed by a couple songs on it. I think when I was a kid, I didn't like No Quarter, and I think the grunge I always thought was kind of weird. I love the whole thing now. Had an almost religious experience listening to this record while driving through Montana on a road trip once with all the windows down. It just, oh my god, I don't know if it ever sounded so good. But it's my go-to Zeppelin record. It's my favorite Zeppelin record. It probably is my favorite Zeppelin song on it, with the Rain song too. But yeah, Led Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy. All right, this might come as a surprise for some people. I've been a National fan for a long time, and a lot of people did not like this record. A lot of National fans, especially probably the ones that have been fans for a while, did not really care for this album that came out in 2019. I think partly because it relied so much on other vocalists. There are a ton of female vocalists on this record, some taking almost the lead vocal. I think there are a couple on there where there is another lead vocalist on it. But I find that so interesting, and it works, and I like it way better than I did Sleep Well Beast. And for whatever reason, maybe it is kind of the mellower vibe. It's an album I play a lot. I play it more than any other National record. I'm not sure that I've played it as much as I played Boxer when that came out, but this is an album I reach for over and over again. It sustains a mood, almost like Wish You Were Here. You can kind of put it on and it doesn't really interrupt what you're doing or conversation or whatever, but it definitely has moments where you're going to go, wow, you're going to, perk your head up and go, what was that? I forgot about that song. And it's also cool because the rockers on it come on and they don't interrupt the flow. The sequencing is very nice, and they're very welcome when they come on. I mean, so many quieter records, they stick a rocker on there and it kind of ruins it. I'm thinking, actually, okay, let's just talk about Jason Isbell 2 records ago they showed. It's kind of like that with Super 8 Motel. But this one just has such a nice mood to it all the way through. Absolutely love it. I'm Easy to Find by the National. Oh, one thing I want to mention on this, if you haven't seen it, watch Mike Mills' short film. Not Mike Mills from R.E.M. Mike Mills, a film director, did it with the National's music, and that's kind of how this album came about. He asked for music. They realized they had enough for that and a whole lot more, that project, and this album came out. So the images you see on the cover and throughout are from that film. But watching that film, then listening to the record, I think really ties the whole thing together, really pulls it together. But absolutely love this album. The National, I'm Easy to Find. All right, this shouldn't surprise too many people. I just did 5 videos on Neil Young, so probably had to have some Neil in there. But yeah, On the Beach I play a lot. It is definitely my most played Neil Young record. Never had it on CD, never had it on cassette. I always had it on vinyl. And this copy, and I just love it. It always sustains a very nice mood. It's not rock Neil. It's not singer songwriter, super quiet, acoustic guitar, folky Neil. It's like right smack in the middle, but it has a vibe all its own. There's no other Neil Young record quite like On the Beach, and it gets a lot of play from me. Reach around again. Boy, that looks good back there. I should just keep that up there all the time. The Boatman's Call, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Lovely, lovely singer-songwriter record. I mean, it can be heavy and dark at times. I mean, he's talking about failing relationships, love, grief, falling in love. I mean, it's got a lightness to it too. It was quite a departure from the Bad Seeds records that came before it. I know a lot of Bad Seeds members were disappointed because they hardly got to play on it. It's definitely signaled a new direction for Nick Cave. I think he's been doing that ever since, kind of changing direction. Like he pushed the sky away, definitely changed direction there. You could argue he did it again on Ghosteen. I'm sure the next record, when we hear it, might be yet another departure. But you can't go wrong with Boatman's Call on a Sunday morning or a Sunday afternoon or, I don't know, a Tuesday night. Boatman's Call sounds absolutely wonderful. It's a great record. All right, next we have R.E.M. record. I'm a huge R.E.M. fan. It's funny, this was not an album that I liked when it first came out. It's the first R.E.M. record that I bought on the day it came out because I became a huge fan of them on the album before that, Document. But I shouldn't say I didn't like it. I liked it, but I was kind of annoyed by Pop Song 89, Stand, Get Up. Absolutely love the advanced single of Orange Crush. But I found that as the years gone by, it's just such an intriguing record, and I like it so much more now than I ever did back in the late 80s or early 90s. I think it's a really, really fine collection of songs, and for whatever reason, it always sounds good on a road trip. I'll try to think about something to play, and then I remember this album, and it always works. Those songs that I used to hate, I love now. I mean, Stand is probably overplayed, and I could probably do without that. Although I love it when they kind of change keys, kind of in the middle of the song. But yeah, Green. I mean, the mellower songs on it are great. You know, there's weird songs in here. You know, Hair Shirt, You Are the Everything. I absolutely love The Wrong Child. I think it's a brilliant song. Hardly anybody ever talks about End of Side 1. And I also love the end of Side 2 with the untitled song, 11. Such a positive song. You know, I guess Stipe wrote it about missing his family when he was on tour and looking forward to seeing them again. And it's just I love this album. I really do. It sounds great. And even though it's not my favorite R.E.M. album, it gets played probably more than any of them. And that is Green by R.E.M. All right, I think this is number 10. This is Tom Waits, Mule Variations. I love this album too, and I play it a ton. And I think part of the reason why it works so well for me is it's sort of a cross between the Island Years, Neil, sorry, I talked about Neil a long time for a while on my previous videos, so it's sort of a, I don't know, a Freudian slip there. Tom Waits, Mule Variations is sort of a cross between his 70s singer-songwriter, like kind of Asylum Records stuff, and then his Island stuff, which I absolutely love. Swordfish Trombones, Rain Dogs, Frank's Wild Years, and especially Bone Machine. I absolutely love that record. But it's got kind of a mixture of both. It's such a good album if you're new to Tom Waits, if you're wanting to learn more about Tom Waits, maybe you just heard a record or two. This is just such a great, great album. And it's one that I play a lot. It just always seems to fit a mood. Even the more crazy songs, you know, if you're not in the mood for that, there's like 2 of them on here. So yeah, it's just a great album. It has probably one of my favorite Tom Waits songs on it, which is Hold On. But yeah, love Mule Variations. All right, are we on to the... Yes, we're on to the bonus albums. There's 2 of them. 2 years ago, I didn't know what either one of these albums were, or 2.5. Yeah, 2 years ago, I wasn't familiar with either one of them, but they get tons of play. My girlfriend and I both got into these records. We play them constantly, and on the weekend they're going to be both or at least one is going to be played probably every weekend. And the first one is John Coltrane Quartet Ballads, which, you know, a lot of people like much more challenging Coltrane. I don't look to music to be challenged in so much as I'm looking at time signatures and who do you play with and who did the solo. I don't really care. It's got to have an emotional component to it, and this album has it in spades. It's a mellower record, which I like. I don't like all crazy kind of jazz, not most of the time anyway. You know, as a curiosity, absolutely. It's something I want to play every weekend, not so much. But absolutely love Ballads by John Coltrane. And the other one, sorry, I thought I was going to lose it. The other one is another jazz record that gets played constantly here too, and that is Dexter Gordon, One Flight Up. A little bit more upbeat than Ballads. Sounds incredible. Sounds like you are at a small jazz club and they're playing in the corner, and it's a smoky kind of lounge, and you're traveled back in time. It's just, wow, it sounds absolutely incredible. I love playing this record, and it's gotten just tons of play too. And I never thought I would have 2 jazz records on the records I played most often, but that is certainly the case now, at least as bonuses, because like I said, I didn't really know these records 2 years ago, and I'm trying to look back at a bigger span of time than that. But Dexter Gordon, One Flight Up, and John Coltrane Quartet. I keep wanting to get the quartet in there, and it's screwing me up. Ballads, absolutely incredible. So that's what I have. I'm sure as soon as I'm done with this video, I'm going to think of other records I should have thrown in there too, but it's 10 plus 2. That's the way I'm going to do it. And yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with any of these 10 records. I love them. They're ones that get played a lot. So anyway, thanks. And I encourage anybody else to do this as well. It's been fun, you know, thinking about not so much your 10 favorite records, but the 10 that you play most often. So thanks again to the Long Cut for this idea. Thanks, everyone.